So as usual, I have a very interesting question today. One of them type of hypothetical questions. And from the title, you can tell where we're going with this. So the question for today is, should they have let Rose Tico, you know who she is, drive into the mini Death Star? And when I'm sure you know the scene I'm talking about, the mini Death Star, as you know, and that I've heard that referred to by different names. Some have called it the siege cannon. Finn, who's the first person who talked about it, called it the miniaturized Death Star, or battering ram cannon. But I'm sure you know the device I'm talking about. The big, heavy thing. They dragged it for quite a ways and stationed it outside the headquarters. And as far as the vehicle, we talked about that. I'm calling it a skimmer for lack of a better term, or just for out of convenience sake. Now, to put this in proper perspective, because this is critical to this whole argument here, we have to look at Rose's relation to Paige. All right? And Paige Tico, her sister, if you didn't know that, one of the first characters we see in the movie. And in reality, this whole arc between the two sisters and those medallions, they both each had like a half, whatever. I'm not sure whether it's the exact same one or each had a half. It's irrelevant. You get the idea. They each had similar medallions. Now let's go back and just kind of trace their history. Let's set a little foundation here. Let's trace their history together, and in so doing, look at a little bit of the history of this medallion, because that seems to play an important role in what I'm going to present to you guys. Okay, so as you recall, going back to the beginning, Paige Tico is a bombardier pilot, or whatever her title would be, driving this massive bombing craft, and she yells up to her bombardier technician, whatever the hell he's called. He's disabled. We know the scene very well. She climbs up the ladder. She sees the release. I'll call it the release button. Let's go back to the scene and very carefully, because I just want to flesh out some nuances with this scene related to her character, and the sisterhood, the medallion, etc., etc. Because as you think back to the scene, I think we all would recall. Yeah, I think somewhere in there she clutched the medallion. But let's flesh that out. When did she actually clutch the medallion? Let's look at that a little closer. So she's climbing up the ladder. She sees it. She's about to reach for it. And then the craft takes a hit. She falls flat on her back on the grating, and she is on her back. She obviously, not so obviously, she's unable to get up for whatever reason. Maybe she's stunned. Maybe she was unconscious for a few seconds. We have no idea. Probably no more than a few seconds if you think about the circumstances. At any rate, she starts kicking the ladder, and we see her kick it 3 times. She kicks it a 4th time. We actually don't see her kick it the 4th time, but we hear her kick it the 4th time. And then after the 4th kick, that's when they cut to her. This is when we see the medallion for the very first time in the movie. She closes her eyes, She clutches the medallion, and then she, sucks in all her energy and says, I gotta do this, whatever, and kicks it for a 5th time, and that's when that trigger remote device falls. She clutches it. She presses it. The bombs are released, and then she sees that the place is going up in flames, and her craft is going to get engulfed with explosions and whatnot. And this another little point that I really didn't recall, wasn't paying much attention to it, but then she clutches this medallion a 2nd time. Okay, once the bombs are starting to explode and are starting to sort of engulf her craft, we see her clutch the medallion a 2nd time. Now, mind you, when we're watching this, we don't know anything about her being a sister of anybody. Never heard of no Rose Tico. We don't know that Rose Tico has another medallion herself. We don't know any of that. So that's just like a little trivial point that we're going to tuck away. We don't really know that it's relevant to anything at this point here. It's almost like a throwaway. Yeah, I wish she had a medallion. She's clutching it for whatever reason. We would have no way of knowing why that's significant at that point, right? Okay, so at any rate, fast forward, we meet Rose. I forget the precise conversation. It was not important enough for me to go back and retrace it and quote it, what Rose just said, but I'm pretty sure it comes out when she's talking to Finn that her sister Paige was on the ship and she died, and she has a similar medallion. I forget exactly how that came out, but we soon realized that Rose is Paige's sister, and she has a similar medallion, and they're close, and she's obviously saddened and heartbroken that Paige met the tragedy that she did, even though as I think they all realized, she turned out to be a hero. I mean, she's actually single-handedly blew up the dreadnought. So they don't really refer to her as the big hero and everything, but I think it's pretty much realized that Paige did a massive heroic feat while sacrificing herself for the rebels and the cause and everything else. So the one of the key next moments we see with the medallion, of course we see the medallion a few times, but more importantly, we see the medallion when they're on a ship. They've already been to Canto Bight as Rose, Finn, and DJ, and they're headed toward Snook's craft, and they said, look, we need to they're radioing back to Poe. No, we don't have the master code breaker, but we have another guy, DJ, who thinks he can do it, and he seems to be pretty confident that he can do it. And so they get to talking to DJ, and they have this conversation. He said, in effect, look, we want you to break the code and help us out, basically. And this is when he says, well, we have to discuss the price. And that's when Rose says, well, I mean, once we're done with the resistance, we'll give you whatever you want. And DJ says, well, what you got deposit-wise? Free candy? All sarcastic as hell, basically. And that's when Finn butts in, says, are you kidding me? Look at us. Basically he's saying, look, do we look like we got like like a whole bunch of money on us. We've got literally we're not carrying around no gold bars. We're lucky to have the clothes on our back. Obviously, we don't got nothing to pay you right now. And that's when DJ says, looking at Rose, is that Cajun smelt? I'm not sure if it says Cajun or Haitian or something like that, right? Is that Cajun smelt? And that's when Rose clutches the medallion. And then DJ continues on, that's something. Meaning, that's something you can give me. Apparently, that medallion is a valuable metal. I mean, obviously, that's the implication. And that's when Finn gets in there, says, look, we're giving you our word. You're going to get paid. That should be enough. And that's when Rose snaps the medallion from her neck, kind of at the same time that DJ is saying, no doing. And that's when Rose tosses him the medallion to DJ. He catches it, and at the same time she says, do it. And then she rotates her chair around, like facing toward the window, the screen, right? Like, just get it done. Here. Now you're paid. Take care of what we need to take care of, right? And then DJ says, now I can help. Then they break away to another scene shortly thereafter, where they're in another room. This is the room where DJ turns on the hologram and showing that this is an arms dealer ship, and that the arms dealer is apparently working for both sides. Anyway, they go to another scene. Rose is not there, and Finn says, give it back. You have no idea how much that medallion means to her. That's when DJ starts talking about the hologram and the arms dealer. Finn goes on to other stuff. That's really the end of that little thread of conversation about the medallion. Okay, so they're setting this medallion up to have a lot of importance. I mean, they've been setting this up really throughout the whole movie. They've made the sisterhood, the medallion, a real thing, an emotional plot device. They really have. So let's fast forward to Crate. They see the mini, I'm going to call it the mini Death Star, way in the distance, and they've decided that they're going to destroy the mini Death Star by whatever means necessary. They're all in their skimmers. I'm calling them skimmers. They got maybe, how many would you say they were? About 15 to 20. And they just started. They're getting used to them. Finn doesn't even know how to work it. Rose says, oh, put down the little ski device. And Poe is putting his foot through the bottom. They look real shabby and flimsy, teetering and everything. But at any rate, they just started heading out in tandem out there. Now, it's at this point that Rose touches her medallion. It's not really clutching it. She's not closing her eyes. She just reaches out, like maybe it's on the. It doesn't even seem like it's around. It didn't even really necessarily seem like it's around her neck. It's almost like she had it sitting down on the. I'll call it the armrest, whatever the equivalent of the armrest. This is a sort of an interesting point here, because she's touching it, and I guess the idea is, look, now I'm on my journey. Okay, this is for you, Paige, and I'm gonna bring it home now, and I got you on my mind, and you didn't die for nothing, and all that type of stuff. Now, I get that. But what she's about to do is nothing compared to what Paige did when Paige did what she did, she single-handedly did a massive heroic feat. Okay, that's not where Rose is at this moment. Okay, they just started out approaching this thing. They haven't even really taken fire yet. At this point, they just started out headed toward the mini Death Star. So they're all happy. They're not happy, but you understand. They're chuckling, they're making jokes. The Poe's putting his foot through the bottom, and they're all heading out in tandem together. Everyone's healthy. No one's died yet. Haven't taken fire. So the circumstances of her touching the medallion are quite different from when the sister was clutching her medallion. Okay? At any rate, as we all know by now, they all head out, and the First Order sees them coming and then just starts picking them off and fire upon them, and they're being very effective at it, and they're suffering losses, and Leia saying, this is not going according to plan, maybe you guys should head back. And Poe said, no, we got to keep going. They need us. This is, this is critical. We have to, we have to keep going. But at the end of the day, it's just too much losses. And got the TIE fighters, even with the Millennium Falcon helping out, it's still not enough. They're still picking off the skimmers. And Poe said, look, pull back. This is his words. This is a suicide mission. Okay, everyone fall back, stand down, go back to base, blah blah blah. And Finn is not going to have any of that. He's still going on. He's not listening to nobody. He turns off the radio, whatever they're communicating with. He he even pulls up off the ground, retracts his ski, whatever. His ship is melting. He's closing his eyes. He's right in the beam of it. Takes his hands off the wheel, I think, of the controls. He's just resigned to his fate. And that's when Rose barges in from the side, knocks him off his path. They both have a collision. He runs to her. Here's the thing about this. Now, I'm proposing that it would have been a lot more rewarding. Her being annoying aside, I'm proposing that it would have made more sense if she drove into the mini Death Star. Okay, in other words, just from a storytelling point of view, Hollywood arc, don't you think it would have made more sense if everyone was peeling off, hit back, but she's the one that started disregarding everybody, and she was heading into the Death Star. She was having flashbacks about his sister clutching her medallion. And then Rose is starting to, stare into the mini Death Star. And then Rose is clutching her medallion like her sister before, just like when her sister was about to do single-handedly something massively heroic. And in her mind, she'd be thinking, okay, look, in her mind, this was my destiny. This was my journey. Now I'm bringing it all home. I'm doing this for my sister, in the name of my sister. I'm doing it for the sake of humanity, for liberty and freedom. And this is what this medallion means: the escape from oppression, sense of loyalty, sense of passion, sense of purpose. This is what I was meant to do. My sister started it off, and now I'm going to finish it, and Paige is going to be proud of me. I'm going to come meet you. Paige, I'm coming to join you, and together we will have known we've done the right thing, and this is our contribution. We're just little people, but we're doing something in a big world, making a big statement. You and me, Paige, forever. We're tight like that. I got your back, Paige. I'm doing this for... No, I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing this for us. I'm just an engineer, but I have a voice, and we have a voice, and everyone discounts us and think we're nobodies and ladies who can't make them do something important. But here we are. This is my moment. This is what brings me to this moment, and this is my gift to the resistance and the world. Boom. Fly into the Death Star. She wouldn't have been saying all that, but this is what she would be implying. This is what we would be thinking in her mind, for her. We could imagine this was going through her mind. Don't you think that would have just been? Don't you think they were almost setting that moment up? Doesn't it seem like they were almost setting up for that to happen, right? If that was happening, you said, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." They set that up throughout the whole movie, showing the barn and the Paige, and Paige did this one heroic big thing, and now Rose is going out the same way. Yeah, I get it. That was like the perfect way for Rose to go out. It makes perfect sense. She was clutching a medallion. Oh, that the symbolism, blah blah blah. It seemed like it was just set up for that to happen, was it not? Can't you see how that would have made, just from a storytelling point of view, and the arc of Rose, the arc of her sisterly relation with Paige, and her journey throughout the whole movie? Don't you think that would have made a lot of sense? Now, you say, okay, well, wait a minute now. If she does that and buys them all this time, then there's really no point for Luke to come there as a forced projection, because that was the main reason. Now, he did other things. He talked to Leia, but the principal reason, ostensibly, that he came there was to quote-unquote buy time, right? And now Rose is doing that. So he has no real reason to go there with the intention of buying time, because Rose has just bought a hell of a lot of time, right? And if you break it down, I mean, I made a whole video about him using the force projection to buy time. I think that video is called, what actually was the point of Luke's distraction, because I did all the calculations, went in deep on that whole point there. Turned out the whole idea of him sacrificing his life bought them literally just a few minutes, okay? And so I questioned that in that video. Go check that video out. But at any rate, he bought them a few minutes of time. If Rose flies into the Death Star, she's buying them literally hours, if not at the minimum, of time. So that would have been a lot more effective time buyer than what Luke Skywalker ended up doing, right? I mean, so effectively, it takes out, that reason for coming out and say, well, that's a big point. That's a big plot there, because that was in effect what led to his death. Well, okay, so they think of some other reason to bring him over there. Just you and I could think of a million other reasons that they could bring him there to intervene in some way, short of so-called buying time, that at least that way, right? In the end, answering the question, should they have let Rose drive a skimmed into the Death Star? I think it's an intriguing question. As I said, I personally would have liked to have seen that. I think I would have liked to have seen that. I think that that's a good idea, to be perfectly honest. What do you think about that? Would you have liked to see? How would you have felt if that had happened? Now, mind you wouldn't have known about what actually did happen, but how would you have felt about that? That's my thoughts on that. Give me your feedback down below, guys. Thanks for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. There's more coming. I may even be continuing a little thread here having to do with Rose and other questions about her. So stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed today's content, be sure to hit the like button. And if you're enjoying the series and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I got a whole nice package lined up here. Virtually the whole thing is already filmed out, so it's coming down the line. If you want to make sure to be on the have these videos show up in your feeds and whatever, the best way to do that is to subscribe or hit the subscription bell, whatever that thing is. And I look forward to seeing you next time. So for now, I'm signing out. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye bye.